What are you doing? You're cute little coyote pup. Come here, buddy. Hey, man. I'm not trying to fuck with you. Come here. Hey. Hey, you gotta get over here. Come here. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 come here. No, it's okay. Hey, 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 hey. It's okay. Hey, shh, 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 shh. Come here. Hey, shh, you're okay. I'm not gonna fuck with you. Don't worry about it. No, you're not that tough. Come here. Hey. You gotta go to a rehab facility or something. Listen to me. Hey. You probably got mange. Maybe you got rabies. I should have brought my goddamn gloves. Shh, it's okay. It's okay. Shh. Shh. You need help. You know, and I just don't want to get bitten. I want to help you, but I don't want to get bitten. Did some redneck shoot your parents? What's going on? Come on, hey. Shh, it's okay. I'm not going to fuck with you. Not in a bad way. But please don't bite me. But I've had my rabies titer, if it makes you feel any better. Shh. It's okay. What happened to your folks? Huh? Did rednecks kill your folks? I think you gotta come with me. I was gonna take you to a rehab. My friend Cece works in a rehab. Shh, it's okay. That was cute. You think you're tough. You're trying to show me you're tough. I believe you. I believe you're so tough. Come on, let's go. Oh my God, you're fucking emaciated. Please don't bite me. Please don't bite me or give me mange. Oh, you're shit too. Uh-oh. You're probably sick. Okay. Have we not established that I'm not gonna eat you? Don't you believe me yet? You're pretty underweight, and you know, you didn't want any of that turkey jerky I gave you, so that makes me worried. I just seen a tick jump ship, which means either there's some sort of problem with your blood flow, or the tick itself thinks you don't stand a chance. But I'm gonna see that you have a chance. You know what I was gonna do is take you to a nice rehab facility, and then they'll release you back to the wild, and you can go eat some feral cats and squirrels and stuff like that, you know? Okay, but I'm not gonna mess with you. You just sit tight. I'm gonna look at some plants, okay? Now what I wanna show you is something pretty interesting going on here. There's a lot of stuff going on here botanically, and it's all pretty fascinating. Let's take, for instance, these carnivorous pitcher plants right. So we're at an elevation of probably, I don't know, 4,500 feet. As you can tell, there's a seep right there. It goes uphill up that way. I'm surrounded by incense cedars and ponderosa pines. And basically what's going on is that the snow melt higher up is percolating into the ground. And it'll probably do this for the next couple of months, and that's why you have this seep. Right here is a pretty interesting plant. This is a member of the agave family, if you can believe that. This is HASTINGSIA serpenticola, and this is not in full anthesis yet. That is, it's not yet in full maturity, but down the road a ways, a lot of them are going off already. Very beautiful flower, and I believe it's endemic to the region, but don't quote me on that. Let's take a look at this Darlingtonia picture. Okay, so you might have seen one of the previous videos I've done. Oh, look, there's a little lily right there. Not yet in bloom, but you can see those world leaves. You might have seen those previous videos I've done about the carnivorous plant dungeon. Serpenticola was a family that I mentioned there. It's a family of a lot of North American members, a lot of North American pitcher plant members. I think you got 6 species of Serpenticola, which is a genus in Serpenticola on the East Coast. And on the West Coast, this is the only species, the only genus that we have actually in that family. And this is Darlingtonia californica. And you can see one of the names for it is the cobra lily. And it's one of those, well, it's not a lily at all, but it's one of those instances where a common name actually does hold some weight. It does indeed look like a cobra. And the way that this plant compensates for the low nitrogen levels in the often ultramafic soil in which it grows, that is soil that's high in both magnesium and iron and low in essential plant nutrients such as calcium and nitrogen, the way that this plant copes is pretty ingenious. Now, these are last year's pictures. If I can find some, maybe I could look and find some areas where it's putting out new pictures. But it is some down there. They're not really ready yet. But if you could see what's going on, basically it's got these translucent windows right there. And what that does is it lures the bug into the trap and then dupes the bug into thinking that those windows, because the bug can see the sky and the bright light coming through those little translucent cells right there, dupes the bug into trying to keep coming out this way instead of just dipping down and coming out that way. And it's a pretty ingenious trick. It seems to work. Oh, look at it. There's an orchid, a PLATANTHERA species, one of the bag orchids. So it does seem to work. Those, of course, are their flowers, and we'll take an interesting look at their flower morphology. Nice, right about. So anyway, getting right up in there, let's look at what's going on with the flowers. Okay, you got some sepals, some petals, and then in there's where the magic happens. You got that central thing, that star-shaped thing is the stigma. That's, of course, what receives the pollen. It's the female part. And then these are the anthers with the pollen on them. So you can see by the... And then, of course, there's the ovary, that big... I don't know what you would call that. It looks like a almost upside-down pyramid. That thing is the ovary that turns into the fruit. Once it's pollinated, the petals and everything dehiss and fall off, and you just got a fruit, a little capsule in there with a bunch of tiny seeds. And of course, what's going on here is it's trying to prevent self-fertilization. So the bug's got to go up in there and get the anthers, and then on their way out, hopefully they don't touch that stigma. They instead touch the stigma on another plant, and the next bug to come in there's already, hopefully, got some pollen on his legs. He touches that stigma and then moves on his merry way up into the anthers, gets some pollen from there, and then takes off again. And this plant is only known from Northern California and Southern Oregon. And it grows in these serpentine bogs. And one thing I want to point out that's different from the Sarracenia species out east is this one is a lot harder to grow in cultivation, which is why it's just important to protect the habitat where it grows. You know, and go visit it out there, say hello and with the shit. Okay, and the reason it's hard to grow is because unlike the eastern species, the eastern North American species in the family, Sarraceniaceae, this species needs cold running water. It doesn't do well with stagnant warm water like you get in the swampy areas of North Carolina and Georgia and what the shit. And this water is very cold. The water that's running down there, it's very cold running water. So this delicate bastard, this is known as the corn lily, and I believe the genus is VERATRUM, the family is MELANTHIACEAE, and I believe most things in the family are extremely toxic were you to digest them, and they're very easy to confuse with actual lilies. I believe they're in the order Liliales, but just of course in a different family. They're not in the lily family. You can see got some white fir, incense cedar. Here's a nice rhododendron, OCCIDENTALE, not going off, but when they do bloom, they're delightful. And you can see here's more of that Darlingtonia, just mixed in with the forbs and whatnot. I think things are just waking up here. We're kind of high up, so you know, they're a little late in the game. Oh, there we go. Now this is, here you can see it's blooming. It's pretty nice. Really delightful goddamn wild azalea. Rhododendron OCCIDENTALE. And I believe these go all the way up into British Columbia. It's a pleasure to see you whenever you do. And they're often growing on serpentine a lot, but they don't need serpentine soil. Look at those long ass stamens. You got 5 long ass stamens, those are the male parts, and this central little bug antenna popping out there is the stigma. That's what receives the pollen. And again, this is ERICACEAE, the blueberry family, a family known for its many acid-loving plants. Big ass, what is it? Is it a Doug fir or white fir? It's a Doug fir. Pseudosugamenziceae. I want to show you this guy over here. Now this just looks like a grass, right? Just looks like a boring ass grass. Not much going on. This is actually a pretty interesting plant. And there's one blooming over here I'll show you. The name is Xerophyllum panax, and it occurs all the way east to Wyoming and Montana, up on into Washington. And there's even some populations down in coastal Santa Cruz. And here's what it looks like when it blooms. This again is in Melanthiaceae, same family as that corn lily. And I believe this is heavily toxic too, were you to ingest it. But I don't need to do that, obviously. I got a burrito waiting for me in a car if that goddamn coyote pup didn't eat it yet. Now look at this. See what's going on here. Typical monocot form. You got 6 petals, 6 stamens, and then a central stigma. And look at those bracts. Look at those sexy bracts, those little spikes coming out of where the flower, other flowers have not yet opened yet. The flowers, of course, open from the bottom up. And again, you know, if it wasn't flowering, you just think it's some kind of boring bunch grass, and not knowing the wonders that lay inside. Now that there's a species of Angelica, family's Apiaceae, carrot family. I forget what goddamn species it is. I haven't seen it in a year or two because I haven't been up here. I've been fucking around the deserts too long. But it's pretty impressive when it does send up a bloom. And this, if you can believe it or not, is a goddamn oak. This is known as huckleberry oak. So most of us tend to think of oak trees as these very large, growing, impressive bastards, especially if you're in the Midwest or the East Coast, because most of the oaks out there, the quercus that is, it's the genus, most of them do get pretty big. But there's many oaks that don't get taller than 4 or 5 feet tall. And there's a lot of different species of that. They call them the shrub oaks, and this is one of them. Quercus vaccinifolia, so called because it kind of looks like huckleberry when it's not, when it doesn't have acorns, of course. Just looking at the foliage, vaccinifolia. That means vaccinium, genus of huckleberry and blueberries and what the shit. Folia means leaves, blueberry leaved. So what's going on here? You see, these are the oak flowers, typical catkins right there. And what they'll do when they're done, it's okay. And this is interesting too. The new growth has that the red in it, those anthocyanin pigments and carotenoids and what the shit. They're like plant melanin. They protect that new tissue, which is very soft when it comes out. They protect that from the harsh rays of the sun until it can, quote, harden off, you know, until it can is sclerophyll, you know, until it becomes sclerophilous, that is hard-leaved. And interesting thing about this plant, one of the especially interesting things, and I don't know if this is true throughout its range, but at least up here where I've eaten them before, you know, I picked up one of these acorns once, little marble-sized acorns, threw it in my mouth on a hike, and you know, sure enough, it didn't have too many tannins in it. I could just eat it raw. They're like chestnuts in that regard. Of course, they're in the same family as chestnuts. And I didn't know that. No one told me that. You know, it's not normal for me to go putting shit in my mouth on a hike. But in this case, I did it, you know, just for shits and giggles. And it turned out to be, you know, I could eat this thing, which was pretty impressive. Now I did it again and again and again. And yeah, you can eat the acorns when they're mature without having to leach them like you do with most species in the genus Quercus. Here's a nice incense eater, and these are goddamn impressive trees. Redwood family, Cupressaceae. Some of them get big as fuck. There's one down there. See with that nice red bark? And you know, I planted one of these in my mom's house back in Chicago, and it's made it through 3 or 4 winters now. You know, the most brutal being the last one, came through shining. And I don't know why they're not planted more, because they can take the humidity that you get when you cross the Rocky Mountains. You know, it gets more humid the further east you go. They can take the humidity without rotting, and they can also take up to a zone 5 winter. This is Calocedrus decurrens, and the cones are pretty funny. The cones look like little duck lips. I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to find any right now because you know, they're just getting pollinated. They're not gonna. The cones aren't gonna be ready for another shit. I don't know, 3 or 4 months. Oh, actually, you know what? Here's one. Here's one from last year. These are the cones on this Calocedrus. See, they look like a little duckbill. You got 2 seeds per cone. 2 seeds per cone in there. It's a winged seed, and they're really easy to germinate. Great fucking tree, you know. And they got that they got this nice red bark, which especially gets especially emphasized the older they get. And then the wood's not really good for nothing but fence posts, but it does smell delightful. That's why they call it incense cedar. Oh, now what could this be? It's a species of pyrola. again, the blueberry family, ERICACEAE. And the interesting thing about these is that they're partially mycoheterotrophic. That means they're partially parasitic on fungi in the ground. I don't know if this species is in particular, and I can't tell what exact species it is because it's the flowers aren't out yet. But it's I think the common name is wintergreen or something. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? Who cares? It's a species of pyrola, though. That's the genus ERICACEAE, and a couple of these species are not they're not only symbiotic with fungi, like I said, they've actually lost their leaves entirely and just begun to just straight out loot the mycorrhizal fungi in the ground, of which there's many, you could tell, because you got a lot of these trees and all these conifers are symbiotic with fungi in the ground, that is mycorrhizal fungi. There's more of that Xerophyllum panax, aka the bear grass, just looking like a firework popping up out of that little manzanita over there. Look at this sedum, though. Now, sedum's a species in CRASSULACEAE. It's a family of succulents, of course, notorious for their crassulacean acid metabolism, in which they take in carbon dioxide at night and then close their stomata, their little coin purse-shaped openings in their epidermal tissue during the day. They close the stomata during the day so they do not transpire as much moisture. And then, of course, it's a self-contained photosynthetic process going on there, but that is, they're not actively exchanging CO2 with the atmosphere while they're photosynthesizing like most plants are. And there's a lot of different species of sedum in Northern California, so much so that I've decided to just not fuck with it. I basically stay away from it and enjoy them from a distance and don't bother going into figuring out what species each one is, because there's just so many and they're so hard. But I do appreciate the shit of them, and I'll tell you that. Now, see, there's that bear grass, and you really get the full effect of it. It's a pretty goddamn wonderful plant. Always a pleasure to see it just going off within the montane coniferous forest of Northern California. And judging from that soil type, you could see that bright red, iron-rich soil on those hills over there. You could tell we're in an ultramafic area. It is there's serpentine soil around. So that, real quick, take a look at this. Formerly Mahonia, I believe they've moved the genus to Berberis. This is a Oregon grape is the common name. The herbalists like this because, you know, if you're sick, and hopefully only if you're sick, you can make a tea from these roots. They got a compound called berberin in them. It's got antimicrobial effects. But again, don't go making potions and shit just for the shits and giggles of it. You know, only use it when you're sick, and then maybe you don't need it at all. Okay? A lot of people just like to pick stuff to make potions because it makes them feel good. Don't do it unless you're sick, you know. Anyway, you can see again it's got those red leaves on it are due to the anthocyanin and carotenoid pigments, because that's new tissue, and the plant's trying to protect its new tissue before that new tissue hardens off. It's trying to protect it from the sun. Again, just look at that Xerophyllum. Oh, it is. Look, you could see some snow still. Now, the nice thing about the elevation botany, that is, when you're working with elevation, is that you can always ascend in elevation, and it's like going back in time in phenology. Of course, phenology relates to flowering times and you know, when flowers of certain plants are mature. And so those Darlingtonias I was showing you down the way, they're a little bit lower in elevation. They're already flowering. They're pretty much already done. These pitcher plants right here, these Darlingtonias right here, are not yet even begun to flower yet. And you can just see there's a nice little riparian meadow on a slope right here. And we're at about 6,000. Yeah, see, though it's mid-June, it's still early spring up here at about 6,500 feet. And this is one of the first plants to bloom in the montane west. This is a species of anemone in the family Ranunculaceae. That is, I forget what the common name for this family, I don't fucking know, who knows. Either way, anemone's the genus, and like I said, it emerges from a perennial rhizome, a perennial root in the ground, and trademarks of this family are that they just got dozens of goddamn stamens in there, and they almost look like they'd be a member of the rose family or something, but of course they're not. They're, I believe they're one of the earlier branching lineages of the flowering plants. Anyway, so the surrounding trees around here are lodgepole pine, Pinus contorta, and you got the white pine. It's western white pine, Pinus monticola, and then you got some of those. Actually, I don't know if there's any firs around here. I don't know, but anyway, we'll look over here at this little patch of Darlingtonia. And you can see, like I said, they're not even flowering yet. Oh, here's a little shooting star, a little primula. Look at it. But see, they're just waking up. And here's one with a flower bud starting to emerge. And, you know, if you're looking for full frontal flowering nudity, you got to come back maybe in, I don't know, 2 weeks or something. You know, but then you can really see what's going on with those flowers. And, you know, get up there, look at the stamens and what the shit, you know. Look at that really ripe stigma just waiting to be pollinated, you know. And it's still too early up here. But it's like I said, it's pretty wonderful. You know, you're a little late missing stuff flowering down below. Just come up about 1,000, 2,000 feet, see what's going on. Okay, I gotta get the fuck out of here soon. But lastly, I'll end it with this. Here's a species of Clatonia, Melananthiaceae. Miner's lettuce is the common name for a few of those species. Here's that's a nice thing about going up in elevation. You get a lot of these little dwarf plants. They're real easy to look at. In fact, you got to get a lens sometimes, but you know, you just got to be in your niche. You know, and that's what a lot of my friends complain about, because, you know, they're like, I wanted to go on a hike with you, and instead, you know, I moved at a pace of about, you know, 3 hours per mile, and I just watched a grown man stare at the ground the whole time. But you know what? Go fuck yourself. Fine, you don't got to come on a hike with me. I don't care. There's a member of the Brassica family, as you can tell from those 4 petals, and also just the general leaves. You know, if you remember, Streptanthus has those kind of sessile leaves, the leaves that just completely envelop that peduncle right there. You know, they just there's no stem to the leaf or nothing. But I have to look that one up. I don't know what that is. That's a boetra or what? Anyway, that's all I got for you now. I'm not gonna say be sure to subscribe, because to be honest, I don't give a shit whether you subscribe or not. I just want you to you start paying attention to some of this shit when you go outside and see the redeeming value in so much of this stuff, because so much of it's being lost to the cancer, the tumor of modern human civilization, and our extremely misplaced value system. There you go. Go fuck yourself.